instruments. It's not about adding familiar or weird sounds to the sound of musical position like using in the framework of a symphony orchestra. It's not about adding other media, making visual art or objects support music or illustrate. It's much more about thinking and exploring that all means of our world, of our life, all devices, all machines, all materials can be part of composition. So it's not about just creating an installation, it's really about taking strategies or means which are traditional outside of music into the process of creating music.
I'm from the Philippines. As a composer, one of my influences is Philippine traditional music. What interests me much is the social aspect of music making. It doesn't matter what instruments I'm using, I'm taking this influence of gathering people together and create some sort of a social space. I remember visiting an aunt from the province and they live in the highland. It's a small space. And the only thing I've done there, staying there overnight with my cousin, younger cousin, is to play this traditional game called sungka. The goal is to put all these shells or stones in your own house. The game ends when all the small stones in your own territory are empty. For me, it's bizarre because I live near Manila, so I'm very used to city sound and noises. Such a great experience that while you're playing and you're so focused doing this game, your sensitivity opens up to listening to the wind in the forest, the sound of the crickets, some birds. So for my project here in Impulse, I wanted to get a sense of this social space using this object. So I brought a similar board game, and then I wanted that members of the audience would sit and try to play the game. I would use two different sounds, sound from forest or nature, and also sounds from the city. It will happen through triggers. In the sungka I put light-dependent resistors in each hole. Every time the player takes all the stones, it will trigger a sound, and so the sound you'll be hearing will depend on the motion of the players and how fast or how slow you're gonna play. That's mine. You're giving me.
I'm interested in gesture and perception, but maybe perception in the way that computers see gesture. A lot of my research that I did for my master's wasn't in composition or performance. It was mostly computer-based gestural analysis and interface design. I wanted to see what would happen when you search for gestures beyond human movement. So I was thinking in my head before I came here, wouldn't it be crazy if they had a mannequin in the room that we're working with? And they actually did. So there's this kind of weird looking Windows 95 mannequin that we have. What I wanted to do was to use consumer level gesture tracker, aka Xbox Connect. What happens when you point a gesture-seeking tool at an inanimate object? How would it be moving, or what kind of noise would you be getting from algorithms designed to see people based on the assumption of movement? So the mannequin's going to be read by the Connect. The Connect actually really nicely identifies the mannequin as a person, but the mannequin is perfectly still. We get lots of jitter, lots of noise in the skeleton structure that the software is creating, dancing in real time. And you can kind of make the connection between the static object that's currently being interpreted as moving It's got her arm correct, but it's confused. And I'm interested in that confusion. And one thing that kind of makes it interactive is the way that light plays on the mannequin itself, or the way light falls behind it. And the nice thing about using the Kinect and the computer with it is that each joint, I can get data points for each one, assign it to some kind of musical parameter. The coordinates of each joint will just go into max.
I study composition in Zurich. My attempt to what I do is try to understand composition in a wide way. I try to use different media according to the project I'm working with. And I'm very interested in spaces and how they influence the way we perceive sound and perceive ourselves. So that's how I've come to work with different installation settings. It's a space that has on 3 sides windows, so there is a lot of glass. You can always see on the streets, so the streets are very present. I arrange a constellation of beer bottles. It's Puntegammer with the beery beer. An object that you see all the time here. It's really connected to Graz. And when the bottles are standing around here within the gallery space, you have this image that everyone knows from after the opening, for example, of an exhibition, that some maybe drunk people put on the street and left there. And this constellation creates one space that goes through this border of the window. What I want to do is now use the bottles as sounding objects. I want to explore the sonic qualities of the space within the bottles. So I'm adding one more inside space to the gallery, the resonances inside the bottle, and scaling down the idea of concert hall to a very small space that you as a visitor cannot enter, but you can approach it, go really near and listen.
I'm an Australian composer. I'm currently studying a PhD at Huddersfield University in the UK. I guess what I'm going to be doing in the Composition Beyond Music is follow on from stuff I've kind of worked in my composition practice. I write for acoustic instruments with notation. In some of my other ones, I've explored other approaches to notation, actually, and that involves a video process, so video as a score.
5 seconds?
5 seconds.
Oh, I pressed stop when you press. Well, stop when you press. It said 5 seconds.
Okay.
So now you got to one cut out, but you have to now imitate this one.
Okay.
So tell me when you're going to start imitating it.
Record.
That's part of my work, is that I want to explore the room. I mean, the grid aspect idea, I think, is what I'm interested in as well, like the putting things in grids, so contained spaces.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that one there. Now you have to copy this one.
Okay.
Okay. Ready? Tell me
Yeah,
when.
record.
For this type of installation one, I was thinking, I could get into the room and record myself doing certain sound gestures. So the performance is someone actually doing the thing and someone recording it. The installation is all those video elements in a grid in different times.
I was born in Israel and I also studied there. Now I'm living in Basel, where I also study for a master degree in music composition. A thing that's growing more and more in my work is this tendency of combining a normal concert performance with performance art or with installation situations. People that are standing, sitting casually yet motionless in various places inside the gallery, extremely concentrated on what they see on the phone screens, while sounds of various representations of the environment, i.e. sound samples of nature and urban spaces, as well as digital spaces, are being produced by the phone speakers. I would like to elaborate on this why smartphones. So they are everywhere. I don't think that somebody that makes art today can avoid things that are like all around us. Smartphones are actually the main means in which we communicate, and namely the main devices through which we consume representations and generate representations. I simply love this kind of dissonance that is engendered by these small devices and the large spaces they can represent. So if I use my smartphone and play, for example, a field recording of a large forest in this very tiny thing through this very tiny speaker, to really use this idea of representation, I kind of limited myself only to samples that create a very general thing. So if I have a sample of a sound of the forest, then it is sound of a forest. It doesn't matter if it is this forest or that forest.
I'm a composer living in Boston. I usually compose for instruments with different orchestrations. I grew up as a classically trained pianist and was in chamber ensembles. I was actually performing in my friend Juan Sorrentino's piece called Moto at Darmstadt with the Music Beyond Composition workshop there this past summer. And that really influenced my perspective of what composition was for me. For this piece, I chose to create a space where the sound, the energy, and the aesthetics of the environment are giving the audience a new perspective of the senses, a reality for them to explore their imagination and to serve as a gateway for a reflection of value of nature. I guess there is a trend here with environment. I thought it would be really nice to combine all these elements to create a piece, make a composition of it and create this environment. And so I've collected certain natural objects around Graz. I took my time, to choose these objects, and they're not just like random, so I guess that's like also part of the sense of like composition. You make a choice. I've made a collage of sound, and meanwhile there's this sound. I think it's quite isolating from everything else that's going to be happening, everybody else's installation in this space.
I am an American composer based in Texas, and I'm currently finishing my PhD at the University of North Texas in composition. The piece that I'm making here in Graz is an abstracted landscape of a place by combining video, audio, field recordings, and instrument. So really what I'm interested in is the sort of hybridity whenever I combine these different media of creating an abstracted sense of space. 2 shots outside of the tram, one where the tram is moving, and then one where the tram is at a stop. And then the methods that I'm using is juxtaposing them with this desaturated black and white, and then having them filter through one another. Some of the other material that I'm using are filming the stones of the church beside the gallery that we're working in, using them in counterpoint with one another. So I have multiple motions, and I have multiple textures. I'm really, the idea of composition beyond music, I'm really thinking about this in terms of counterpoint. I'll take one video, and then I'll reverse it and put it against itself, so it's kind of a retrograde canon. Then I can add some other audio element and some other environmental sound and create even a further counterpoint. Of course, I didn't really discuss the koto, but basically this is going to be played on top of the koto player, and the koto player will play material that we've worked on together. I'm fascinated by Japanese aesthetics. For me, it makes perfect sense in my brain to put these together, although they are contradictory, of course. So it's an experiment for me to do a site-specific piece in a place I haven't been before. I'm a tourist here, so it's really a tourism piece.
I'm from Mexico. Last 2.5 years I've been doing my bachelor in Dresden. This would be the first case that I do an installation. And I also find very interesting how I find similarities in my idea to what Benjamin and also Goni and Chess said before. It's also using space, contextualizing with recordings. Tiny, high-quality pictures of large areas like cities or deserts that would come with determinate audio to match or not, and to have also a magnifying glass to try to really feel inside that small space as an incongruity with the actual space that we live on. As I did this zoom in the music, I'm trying to do a zoom out in space. That's the most exciting part for me, to try to express this changing of the perspective through media, through material, and in time, and in an exposition.
Originally, I'm from Lithuania, but I've been based in Manchester for nearly 5 years now. Although I come from a classical background, I got really influenced by the city, industrial, grimy, urban environment that it had. Also, the city had a strong established experimental scene towards this DIY scene. I'm creating my music mostly from instruments that I construct myself, from lo-fi technology, recycled goods like old instruments or bits of circuitry, and I'm trying to recontextualize them. As I gained more knowledge through participating in various workshops, I started to discover lots of interesting things. The telephone call pickup was the one that sort of blew my mind. Just as the galleries is surrounded by this constant city central buzz, in today's age, we are all surrounded by this infinite waves of communication, electromagnetic waves. So my goal in this installation is to sonify these waves, make an inaudible activity audible. The coil pickup detects and converts magnetic energy and converts it the same way as a, let's say, microphone converts acoustic energy to electric energy. In the installation, I will have pre-composed materials and live triggering, which will happen according to a couple of rules that will depend on what is happening.